this week's episode, of course, is Batman Returns. We are at 20 after the hour, so we're going to be going well into 10:30 plus. If you are here and are watching, thank you for joining. Batman Returns is a fantastic movie. Brian, who has been here for every episode, actually, the three of us watched it together with Steve's other friend Matt, who I would say is my friend, but really I met him that night, and we talked to each other very little. So,
you guys watched it together?
Yeah, yes. I got locked out, and the only person I know in the city that actually lives in the city is Steve. Nice. So it just so happened him and Brian were watching Batman, and we, oh, hey, Kaylin, baby.
Baby.
It just
so.
About you, baby. Okay, so it just so happened that I got to watch it with Steve in person, nice. Which was kind of a unique thing. I also, just before we go on, I just want to. The reason why there's video games on the screen, you're going to see it move around occasionally, because this new expansion pack is out for an MMO, and if I get kicked out, it's an hour and a half wait to get in. And that's if I had the Batman. I was trying to download Batman. It's not on any streaming services for free. I was going to have Batman on the screen. However, it was taking forever. So I said, fuck that. You guys are going to see my guy move around in the background occasionally so I can keep my place inside the game.
Hey,
so,
welcome to the fourth try.
Whoops.
The hell was that?
Finally got that notification
that was a tablet
on my iPad to join the one that you had sent 7 times. It finally just came through.
Oh, okay. So I guess we'll start the show off like we normally do. And I'll just start us off. My connection to this movie is basically that I had this VHS as a kid. I've probably seen this movie 100 times. But the thing is the time between watching it 100 times as a kid and watching it as an adult, I think I saw it once in my 20s, and then last Tuesday night was the first time I had seen it in at least 10 years. Besides, you might be at a host party, you might be at somebody's place, you might be on the background, you might be like, oh yeah, that scene. There was a lot I forgot about it, which was good. But when you see it, you're reminded of it. The taser bit, I didn't realize went on for that long. We'll get to all that when we get into the episode, but it's one of my favorite movies of all time. And I think that it's one of the better of all the Batman movies. I would place it higher than lower, I think. And, obviously Joel Schumacher Batman movies suck, but they take up their own place in the Batman movie mythos. And obviously the 60s Batman doesn't hold up because it's a 60s movie, but it holds its own place in the Batman mythos. So this one I do regard pretty highly, even though you start to see the camp come through. Batman 89 is pretty serious, pretty almost like an 80s version of the Christopher Nolan take on Batman. This one is kind of wacky, but it has a lot of the movie is. Steve brought this up while we were watching it. The movie looks like it's in black and white at times when it's just not. And that's kind of the color palette for the whole movie, which I thought was really interesting. It's almost like a film noir. That's great. So yeah, that is my connections to the movie. So I'm going to throw it over to Kaylin.
Hello.
What's up? What's up,
gentlemen? Thanks for having me, Steve. Wicked sweater. Shout out to Danny Elfman on the
Danny
score.
DeVito. Oh wait, Danny Elfman. Yes, couple of Dannys.
And also makes a little cameo during the. We'll talk about that later. So my intro to this movie definitely was basically toys. So I first saw this movie as a young child, and then was instantly hooked. And toys. I had a bunch of them. I also won a coloring contest. No, was it a coloring contest? It was either a coloring contest or a crossword thing. And I got this thing. It's not a Game Gear. It's not an Atari, but it's.
Is it a Tiger Electronic Batman Returns toy?
One sec.
No, he's
was it a Tiger? because those Tiger Electronics toys were dope as shit when
Lynx.
all you had was you had a Lynx. What?
And it's
You had
by
a fucking
Atari,
Lynx?
okay? It's a
Yeah, it's an
Lynx
Atari
by
system.
Atari with a Batman Returns game that I don't think I ever beat. I don't think I ever got past the second level, to be honest. I won this
I think
level.
it's the side scroller beat 'em up, right? Like it's the same
Yeah.
as like the NES and okay. Sorry, I'll stop interrupting.
No, it's all good. We're interacting. You're adding to the story.
You are the story.
But yes, the Tim Burton Batmans, or like the first two, definitely a little darker in tone from the what was it, 60s show, and then also they had a live action movie for that as well, as you mentioned, and then Schumacher just going crazy with the colors and the theatrics and a little more childish, I guess. This movie, watching it though, so like you said, like I definitely watched it a lot as a kid, and then into my older years, longer stretches of space in between each viewing.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize how sexual this movie was.
It's got a lot of sex in it.
It's got a lot of sex and like words.
I'm still here.
Also, I'm Batman. I'm gonna talk the rest of the. I can't do that. I was gonna talk the rest of it like that, but I can't.
Where is she? Where's the trigger? I will say Michael Keaton's Batman doesn't. He just kind of talks. Kind of sounds like Tim West. What's the Batman animated series Batman? Steve, you're the voice actor guy.
Kevin Conroy.
Kevin Conroy, Tim West is not even a real person. Yeah, the Kevin Conroy Batman is kind of what this Michael Keaton Batman sounds like to me.
A little stern.
Yeah, a little bit more stern, a little bit more like Batman. What they retroactively did with the Batman Christopher Nolan in the second movie, he starts talking like this, and in there's like an animatrix animated Batman thing with like 4 stories of these kids telling different stories about their interaction with Batman. It's shown that Lucius Fox gives them a little voice thing, and that's why in the second and third Batman, he's like, oh, he's got a gravel voice. He's also the lead singer for Jeff Clark.
He sounds like a lawnmower mixed with a grizzly bear mixed with Clint Eastwood.
Yeah,
that's what they put into the algorithm for his voice modulator. Like a little Eastwood, a little lawnmower, and a little grizzly bear. Go fight some crime.
Go ahead,
bats.
Make my day.
Hey, do you know what animals were used for that? The lion. I think is it the lion's roar at the beginning of MGM? I'm pretty sure they used a few different animals.
I'm pretty sure it's an actual lion, though, isn't it?
The lion is, yeah, but the roar.
I guess the real question is, do you know? Because it sounds like you don't either. Like, what's going on?
Well, depending on how the brain works, if we could somehow dive in and find my old subconscious or whatever.
Right. I thought it was just a lion. And my brain has replaced it with that TikTok where the guy burps.
Kaylin, did you fit
to this, Steve?
Yeah, well, I'm the host here, Kaylin. I was going to ask you if you were done.
My bad.
I mean,
but
truth be told, I'm not really a big Batman fan. I don't really like Batman at all.
Bullshit.
I really kind of hate Batman. Like, my whole life I've been struggling with this like identity of people really need you to like Batman, but I always have hated it. No, I'm kidding. Batman is my most favorite thing, second only to, I think, Star Wars, really. If you can't tell, I also hate Star Wars. But I saw this movie in theaters. The 89 Batman was one of the first VHSs that I ever owned as a kid, even though it kind of scared me a little bit. A lot of the parts in the movie I would leave the room for when I was, like 3 or 4, but I was watching it. Like, I don't have a memory of watching the first one, but I do recall seeing this in theaters. And it kind of like gave me a new sort of baseline for what Batman is or could be, I guess. And it's like this super gothic, dark amazing thing that just kind of like awoken all these sort of curiosities in the back of my head. And yes, like you said, it is very sexual, and I don't think I realized it until a later date in my life that it's like, oh yeah, that's why I like all these weird things that I like. Don't check my internet history.
What, you got a thing for cats?
You can name a lot of stuff in this movie, and I have a weird thing for it. Also, I walked off there because I remembered something that I drew years and years ago. So I'm going to show you now. It's a picture.
Just Steve's.
I'm an illustrator. But this is really old. But this is a picture of Batman fighting Hitman, one of my other favorite things in the world. Not the greatest picture, but yeah, it's an old pic. It's an oldie but a goodie. That's why I walked off. I was like, wait, didn't I draw a thing? And I did. I'm glad I kept all my old sketchbooks.
That's
just for this podcast. I found an answer to Kaylin's claim that it's not an actual lion. In fact, it's not a lion. It's not a bunch of vocalizations of animals mixed together. It's actually a tiger. Lions don't make that kind of ferocious noise, and the logo needed to be ferocious and majestic. So it's a lion. It's a tiger vocalization.
So it's not a lion or a grizzly bear and Clint Eastwood mixed together, like I thought.
No, that's Batman. That's established as the Batman voice. Okay, Steve, did you have some more things to add to your introduction?
This movie, again, it kind of set a baseline, and, I really liked Batman Forever when it came out. And then even as a young child, when I saw Batman and Robin, I was like, this is bad. Like a little kid walking out, like my first critique of a movie being like, was that a bad movie, Mom? And my mom's like, no, it was good. It was good. And she's like, oh, he's realizing bad movies exist.
I found out that Batman Forever was a bad movie and Batman and Robin were bad movies when I was like 9. So Batman and Robin came out in 96, right? I think.
I can tell
think
you right
so.
now.
I remember being very, very young, and people even on the playground were like so excited for Mr. Freeze as Arnold Schwarzenegger, and even I was like, because the cartoon had come out at this point, and I was obsessed with the cartoon show, and I was like, I don't know if Arnold Schwarzenegger is
97
can be
97
can be this character. Like he should be like a skinny stoic man. And I'm like making all these insights as a kid who's too young to think about that kind of thing. I was like, it's not a good match. And then I saw it, and it was like, this is like literally the first time that I was consciously aware of a movie being bad. Because when you're that young, every movie is amazing. You go see any movie, and you're like, whoa! I need all the toys now, no matter what the movie is. And
that's what they were. They were just vehicles to sell toys. And Batman Returns has a very famous story of them the studio and toy companies, probably Mattel or whatever, wanting to use that movie as a vehicle to sell toys. We'll get into this when we talk about the meat and potatoes of the episode, but the movie is not a kid's movie. You guys already brought up with the sex stuff. The violence in this movie is over the top. Selina Kyle's fucking descent into madness, and when she makes like those fucking horrible claws, like that's not a kid. That's not like a thing that you put in a kid's head. Like that's fine. The only kiddie thing about this is like the parts where you see Batman not fighting people, because even when he fights people, he's so brutal. He's like Christopher Nolan Batman level brutal.
Yeah.
Also breaks his rule.
Yeah, he breaks that
rule. In this one. He does not have a rule in the Tim Burton Batman movies. He kills so many people over the course of the Batman movies that Tim Burton directed. Tim Burton did not care about Batman not killing people. And
the rule is also...
I don't care either. Batman should kill so many fucking people.
That's how you gotta kill people.
The rule is one specific version of Batman that people think is all Batman. And the truth of the matter is the original Batman from like the 1940s had a gun. He just straight up had a gun. So like you can't really. I think the Batman rule is from the Dark Knight Returns era of Batman, like the 80s and the graphic novels and stuff. But even then, I'm not 100% sure where the rule even comes from. Christopher Nolan Batman uses the rule. I don't think he actually straight up kills anybody in that. And it might be
not directly, but he does by accident. Remember when he's like, I'm not
Yeah,
gonna kill you, but I don't have to save you, and then he leaves Ra's al Ghul to like
Yeah.
get blown up in a train. But he directly
that's
causes
true.
that by
Ra's
harming
al
him.
Ghul tried to kill him 3 times by that point, so
Yeah. Also, somebody watching asked, "What do you find so appealing about Batman?" Which I think is a good question for all of us, because I know that again, like Batman is my second favorite thing. Anytime something new Batman related comes out, I get extremely excited. I'm even excited for this new Batman movie that's coming out, despite being a little bit disappointed with the last couple of renditions of Batman in the last few years. I didn't hate any of the Ben Affleck stuff, but I didn't particularly think it blew my mind, especially coming off of the coattails of Christopher Nolan's, which was like amazing. And then the Schumacher stuff, obviously on reflection, is bad, but then the Tim Burton stuff was like a really huge milestone for me as a kid in terms of like bolstering my love of Batman. And then the '90s cartoon show was like so huge to me, and I still watch that show every once in a while because it's good, and you don't have to be a little kid to enjoy that show. It deals with interesting themes. It taught me a lot about writing and structure in terms of story, as well as just like showing me why Batman is interesting over a long period of time, because that show ran for multiple years, and even to this day that story is sort of like the canon point, like the start of the canon for everything that Kevin Conroy voiced afterwards, up
yeah.
until like maybe the video games and stuff. But like even Batman
Anything
Beyond, it's supposed to
animated,
be the same Bruce Wayne.
anything animated like that, and written by Paul Dini, it sort of takes place in that universe. Like even that was it the Long Halloween or the one where they had Batman bang Batgirl? Was that the
Well,
Long Halloween? That they tacked on from the comics, but it was in the same style. Kevin Conroy was back, and it felt like it was in the world of the animated series. I have to agree with a lot of that. The reason why, so I love vigilantes with no powers, but I didn't realize I liked that until Iron Man became super popular in the mainstream. When I was a kid, I liked Batman because my favorite superhero is Spider-Man, and he has basically Superman's powers, but way cooler. He's a teenager. He's got actual things in his life he's got real stakes in his life because he's in high school. I hate Superman because he's the opposite of that. He's just a dude with superpowers, and he can beat everybody, and the people come in to beat him. It always comes down to like a war of attrition, and then Superman just uses his one new ability. Where Batman is a detective who has something for everything, for every situation.
yeah.
So to the point that he gets kryptonite and beats Superman. So I think that that's really interesting about Batman. And Spider-Man, he's a close second. My all-time 2 favorite superheroes are Spider-Man and Batman, but I think Batman is just below Spider-Man because I relate more to Spider-Man, and my dad is a mega Spider-Man mega fan to the point he has a Spider-Man room in his house. But Batman is a very close second. I've always, and probably because I got this movie when I was literally 7 years old, which is inappropriate, but it was a different time. Kalen?
No, it wasn't. Hella appropriate. Did you notice in the animated series the TVs are in black and white? Like the show, like in that universe, it's like old timey
It's like,
thing.
yeah, it's like the 1950s aesthetic.
Well,
Yeah.
the whole thing for that was it Brad or Tim? What's his name? God damn it! The creator of the animated show.
I'll look it
Dini?
up right now.
I know it. It's in my brain somewhere. I'm embarrassed right now that I can't say it out loud. I think it's not. I was gonna say Brad Bird, but I know that's wrong. Anyway, the whole kind of vision of that was like the World Trade
Bruce
show.
Timm.
Bruce Timm.
No, Bruce Timm.
I knew Tim was in there somewhere. Bruce Timm. He envisioned it as like Looney Tunes
Paul
animation.
Dini was just Paul Dini was just the writer of a lot of it. Sorry, he invented Harley Quinn, as I recall. Sorry, Steve, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
The vision of what Batman was going to be in that show in particular was what they did at like the World Trade shows back in like the 50s.
Oh, right, futuristic. Yeah.
Where they would take what people thought the future was going to look like and represent it as the present, even
like
though
those blimps.
That's why it feels so odd, right? And at the same time, using a lot of influences from the Tim Burton movies. So it was kind of like an amalgamation of all these different things, and it just gave it such an interesting aesthetic. But it also, like, his vision of it was that he wanted to make it Looney Tunes style animation, but mature and scary and spooky looking. So they hired a lot of the same animators who worked on all those like Nickelodeon shows, like the Tiny Toon Adventures and like the WB shows, like Animaniacs and
Well, Animaniacs used to lead into that show, or was after it on Saturday morning cartoons, as I recall.
But
they
like,
were
so
on the same block.
Imagine you're an animator and you're dealing with all these cartoony things, and then all of a sudden they come to you with these like character designs, being like, we want to animate this and we want it to look like this, and they're like, I would be so excited as an animator because I'd be like, finally, I don't have to draw these like stupid, like weird creatures that are dumb. I get to draw cool things fighting.
Where's the love, Steve? Where's the love?
Listen, I'm not saying I don't like Animaniacs. I'm just saying, as somebody who draws literally for a living, if I had to draw like cutesy stuff forever, and then someone finally brought me something that I was like legitimately interested in drawing, I would be extremely excited about it. But again, just to kind of continue, I'm sorry, I don't know why my Xbox is yelling at me like this. To continue, I didn't really finish why I like Batman. I like him because he is smart. He is like almost as smart as a supervillain. Like, he is a supervillain level intellect, but he also has the ability to kick the shit out of people. He's, like you said, Jason, a detective.
I like gadgets too. I like like Batman cool. is. I love gadgets. Batman in Batman Returns only uses a couple of gadgets. Like, he really only uses, like, Penguin uses more gadgets than Batman in Batman Returns. But I think that might have been intentional. Now that I think about it, like, Penguin's whole gimmick is that he's got the parasols that do different shit. So if Batman was like, I got bat everything, it might have taken away from that a little bit. That's a revelation.
His car has a little thing that comes down, and he can do a 180. He can go real skinny in it.
Well, this one was they were clearly trying to sell the vehicles. They were trying to sell
all of those toy commercials. That was just like, like miniature toy commercials within the movie. But also cool as shit, because when we were watching it, Jason, I was like, I had that toy. Like, I remember that toy. I had that toy.
And I want that toy again, honestly. I would love to get that. The elusive... No, I had the Batmobile, but the elusive Bat boat that's only in the movie for like a minute, I always wanted that. And I think you could get the Penguin. I can't recall, but I think they might have made the Penguin thing, the giant rubber ducky. I'm gonna look that up actually.
I'm pretty sure you're right. They did have a lot of McDonald's toys. I remember having. I was gonna say
McDonald's did a version of it, yeah.
And this was like a brief stint in my life where my mom caved because I kept being like, I want the Batman, and my mom knew how much I loved Batman, so she was willing for that short period of time where Batman Returns came out to take me to McDonald's, not regularly, but like.
Well, how many times would they change the toys? Once a week or once a month? It was once a week, wasn't it?
I think it was once a week because that's kind of like the lifespan of a movie in movie theaters is not that long.
It was once a month. It was once a month that they changed the gimmick of the toy, and they put out a new toy every week. Or sometimes they would put out multiple toys during just this week. These 4 toys are available, and then all the good ones would be gone. So the only thing I could find is they actually only made a die cast. Can you see that? Like a die cast, like miniature. Like a not a micro machine, but like a dinky. Dinky, Hot Wheels. But there was no actual toy. But that would be an awesome toy. Because they did make the Penguin, the little penguins in a 2-pack. Me and Steve both had those. I don't know if you had those when you were a kid as well, Kaylin.
The actual penguin with the rockets.
I had so many toys from this movie.
But the penguin toy itself was just a remake of the old cartoony penguin, and not the actual this penguin, because they were like, oh, he's too scary for the kids or whatever.
Yeah, I believe that.
I kind of wanted to lean into the darkness of this movie and why it exists. And
can I add my appeal before we dip into that?
Yep.
Your appeal? Sure. What is your appeal, and what are you appealing?
No, not that appeal.
What the question from earlier he never answered.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
What I find appealing, my apologies.
Right. I thought you were appealing something like I dispute what you said.
No,
No, no, no,
Kaylin
not
was
at all.
absolutely right. They made a Catwoman that looks like Catwoman, but she's all black, and they made a
Yeah,
Penguin that looks like the '60s Penguin, and then they made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like 9 different Batmans,
yeah. Just like different colors
different colors with different
with a
little
different
gimmicks.
accessory.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then
Well,
literally the Penguins.
the Penguin was also the posters in the movie. The Mayor posters were based on the '60s Penguin because they had made those before they had even cast Danny DeVito.
Right. Yes. Right. That's awesome.
Anyway, let's let Kaylin answer the question so we can move on.
Yep.
Thank you. I enjoy that. I think we each have a different answer. What I find appealing, and so like one of the main themes is the whole duality, right? Where he's this, billionaire playboy, like he's this well-off guy, and but inside he's like dark and troubled or whatever, and he like wants to do good, but it has to be like a secret.
Right.
It's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Yeah,
No,
kind of
I think
along those
that's
lines. Yeah.
yeah. No, I think that's a lot of people connect to Batman specifically because of that. But what I find interesting about this movie in particular is that that's the same exact thing that is appealing about all three of the main like marquee characters in the movie is that
Yeah.
all three of them are born out of some extreme trauma. Oswald Cobblepot was tossed into a river like a few days after his birth because his parents thought he was too disgusting to live. Batman's parents were murdered in
Shout
an
out to
alley.
Pee Wee Herman.
Paul Rubens. Reuben, or is it Reuben or Rubens? I can't remember.
Paul
I
Rubens.
think it's Reuben. Is it Rubens?
Rubens.
Yeah, no. Love to see him. And then Catwoman was literally survived murder. Like it's not like she survived a murder attempt. Like she
Were
was
the cats
dead.
magical? What was your take
No.
on that?
We'll get to that. Let's get into the movie, and then we'll talk about the movie. We'll go through the plot and talk about
that's
it.
kind of what I was trying to do. Is like was trying to give you like the main theme of this entire movie is that people who are born out of trauma can do amazing things, terrible things, or just be left up to their own devices in order to make that choice. And I think the Catwoman is making the choice. Batman leans good, and Oswald leans evil.
So
I think that's kind of a theme that goes throughout the entire movie.
I would agree with that, and all three of the main So after this movie comes out, we go into a series of movies where the gimmick of every superhero movie is in the next movie, we're going to add more villains that the superhero will overcome.
I hate that. So bad.
And this movie was the first time that we really got to see that because like the Superman movies they kind of maxed out at 2 villains. They were like a lot more grounded. And up till now, Superman was the only real superhero franchise that existed. And the third one, or the fourth one, Quest for Peace, or is that Star Trek? Anyway, my point is that Superman went gradually downhill in the 70s and in the 80s, and then this comes along, and immediately in the second movie we have 2 villains. But the reason why I brought up the fact that Penguin has multiple parasols, maybe that's why Batman doesn't really use a bunch of different gimmicks, is because this movie is closer to a villain character study than it is to having Batman as the main character. Because I wouldn't even necessarily say Batman is the main character of this movie, because I think that Penguin and Selina Kyle are both the main character of this movie, as maybe more so than Batman.
Just to respond to that, I think that Batman almost fills the Vicky Vale role from the first movie more so than he does.
He's just there dealing with all the shit that's happening. Like he's just there making Bruce Wayne is even in this more than Batman, I feel like.
But
Batman,
I mean, like, when you think about it, he's playing sort of what you would consider the girlfriend role, where Catwoman is doing all this stuff and Batman is responding to it all and having to run away. And often you kind of look at it through Catwoman's eyes as opposed to Batman's eyes. And to answer, Brian just asked a question: is Shreck the third villain? I would argue that Shreck is the main villain of the movie. He's kind of pitting all three of these people against each other, and standing back and being like, "Well, after they kill each other, I'll just make my power point."
He's sort of like in the later movies where the crime bosses are pulling the strings. Not the Schumacher movies, but the Nolan movies, where if you look at it, if you like lean back, it's the warring families are like the villain, and then out of that some super villain comes out of it. And this kind of has that same thing where Shreck plays the Falcone role, where he's the big bad crime boss who's got these goons. But the thing is, the reason why I want to actually kind of shut that down a little bit is because Oswald Cobblepot turns around and says, I have all this information on you. How about I tell everybody about all your horrible stuff you do to the environment and how much you don't give a shit about the people. And also, Selina Kyle goes digging around in his files simultaneously. So, like, they have blackmail shit on Shreck and Max Shreck.
Yes.
Like,
but, I mean, I think that Oswald is a little bit more relatable in terms of why he's doing what he's doing. And as reprehensible as the stuff that he does at the end of the movie is, Shreck, I think, does the most disturbing thing, which is push Selina Kyle out of a fucking window.
Out of a fucking window.
No fear. Like, he's like, well, you know too much. I gotta.
And then later somebody asks him, what would you do? What are you going to do if she tries to, bring all the stuff? Oh, you didn't kill her the first time. He's like, I'll take it to a higher window.
Yeah. Which is a good line. I like the line. I think that Max Shreck in this movie is the most cartoony, even though like everyone else is super cartoony. Like Catwoman looks like a Tim Burton sketch, like she's like a Frankenstein, like her costume is all stitched together. Penguin is like literally like spewing black bile out of his mouth every time he talks,
greenish black,
munching on raw fish. But Max Shreck looks like a Frankenstein, like a Dr. Frankenstein, where he's just
he looks like Dr. Frankenstein. Yeah,
he looks like a Albert Einstein mixed with like a gambler, like a high rolling gambler.
He looks like young Frankenstein.
Yeah.
In fact.
Yeah. It's crazy.
And he talked. He's already the living embodiment of the Christopher Walken meme at this point. By the mid '90s, everybody was already trying to do. Like, I can't do the accent. I've been trying for 30 years.
I don't do it well. I can do it enough that people know what I'm trying to do, but I'm not great at it. But I think it's hilarious that this is sort of before everybody had locked down their Christopher Walken impression.
Yeah.
And in this movie, he is like going like full Walken, and then they have some other guy who's playing his son who's like, "Dad, we gotta get out of here."
Yeah.
He's like just doing a Christopher Walken impression. I love that. This guy is just like, imagine being on set as Christopher Walken, being like, "What is he doing? Why is he talking like that?" He's doing an impression of you, man.
I just wanted to do an impression of you. You're my dad.
Tim Burton was like taking that guy offside, the guy who looks like a football player with the same hair, and like he's so big, very large son, just being like, all right, just do a light impression of him, and just try not to let him know you're doing an impression of him. No, it's great. It's like it's like
what were you gonna say, Kaylin?
Son shows up is great.
I heard Tim Burton was scared of Christopher Walken.
I believe it.
I would be.
But because I think it's safe to say that Tim Burton likes weird, not fluffy, gumdrop stuff. He likes weird stuff, right? So you'd think that he wouldn't be scared by that. He'd like his weird style.
I think he was cast to be a weirdo. I wouldn't be surprised if Christopher Walken was treating this role like he's a little over the top. I wouldn't be surprised if Christopher Walken had said in an interview where he's like, fuck that superhero bullshit. But once the movie was over, it kind of changed his tune because it's a serious action drama more than it's a superhero movie. Just so happens to have the aesthetic of a superhero thing, but the content of the movie isn't overtly superhero when you start to analyze it. For a kid, it is.
I mean,
and that's why it's easier to market that stuff to kids. But if you, the three of us have all had ample time to sit down and analyze Batman movies because we're white millennials in our 30s. So,
as I said, I've never seen a Batman movie in my life. This is the first Batman movie I've ever watched.
right, yeah. So you made that very clear with your MTV Cribs of your apartment.
So I have an interesting fact about Max Shreck's character. If you guys would like to indulge.
Kalen has his hand. Kalen has his hand up,
yes.
and
yes, you may answer, Kalen. Go ahead.
Yo, hit us with this dope fact, and then can I mention something afterwards?
I didn't
just
say
mention it right now.
It was interesting. Okay.
Just mention it right now.
This movie, after the success of the first movie, after the success of Beetlejuice, and I believe after the success of Edward Scissorhands.
Edward Scissorhands, yeah.
They said, do whatever you want. We just have one or two notes, but you can do whatever you want, because they trusted him at that point. It was literally like a situation where they just gave him as much money as he thought he needed.
He's like, what if it's stop motion? They're like, no, it's not stop motion yet. We'll get to your stop motion stuff.
Burton does not like stop motion. He only did it because he had no other choice at the time of Beetlejuice. Like he that's why in this movie there's so much whack CG.
Well, he does the sandworms are stop motion, but also like all of Nightmare Before Christmas and all of Coraline.
Yeah, he watches those movies now, and the stop frame movies that he makes are all stop frame. It's not real world stuff mixed with stop frame. It's that he looks at Beetlejuice and sees the stop frame and he thinks it's hokey and bad because it's mixed in with real life stuff, which is really depressing to think about, because it's like that's part of the charm of those movies. Like when
those scenes with the fucking sandworm are so good. Those messed me up as a kid more than the macabre horror stuff in Beetlejuice.
It's almost depressing because it explains a lot of why Alice in Wonderland and Willy Wonka doesn't work, because it's like if you use stop frame and stuff, it probably would be much better. Anyway,
I was gonna say I think that's better than CGI, my personal opinion, because it has like texture to it, right? It's tangible.
Yeah. It also just looks wonky and scary. It's more scary because the movements are unnatural. So he had set up in the first movie that Billy D. Williams was Harvey Dent, Two-Face. And
Oh, yes.
This entire movie was meant to be Billy D. Williams slowly descending into the role of a main villain. And at the end of the movie...
Did you hear what was supposed to happen at the end?
I was about to say it. Just chill, Kalen. I'm in the middle of an anecdote.
My bad. Okay.
He was supposed to, when the taser and the lightning hits his face, transform into Two-Face. That's what was supposed to happen. And one of the notes from a studio was, we are not going to give you a black Two-Face. Billy D. Williams is not a bankable actor. We're not going to let you do that. And they cast Christopher Walken and changed the character to Max Shreck because they wanted to have some sort of continuity without messing with the continuity, so they didn't want to make him Harvey Dent. And like a lot of the mayoral storyline was meant to be the DA stuff, where he was going to become the DA, like a big shot lawyer. And I think even the mayoral stuff was going to be mixed in with there. And it's kind of disappointing, but I know that there are comic book renditions where they like there's a comic book series called Batman '89 where they take where the movie's left off and they change it so that Harvey Dent existed and he's drawn to look like Billy D. Williams, and it's really cool.
Sweet.
I've got that actually. I've got that somewhere.
There's like a small.
I want to see it.
Like I really like I really like Christopher Walken's character. I think that he's. I mean, obviously, Penguin is the best character in this movie. He's like so interesting and like funny and scary, and like there's so much going on with him that it's great.
Like peak Danny DeVito as well. Like Danny DeVito, he's throughout the '90s was in a lot of different stuff. But you see him in a movie like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest when he's real young, and you see that he's going to be a great actor one day, and then he's in a bunch of lame comedies in the '90s, and he's great. He's great in Twins. But in this, I was watching him in this movie, and he was so in the role and so present that I felt no wonder as a kid, I could only picture him as the Penguin. You know what I mean? Like that's how good he is in this role.
Yeah, I don't think that I really knew who Danny DeVito was before this movie. I'm sure, like, tangentially I did, but when it comes to, like, my dad would be like, that's the Penguin. Like when we'd be watching other stuff, and I'd be like, oh, yeah.
Like how? How is that the Penguin?
Wait a minute, he has eyebrows in this, and he doesn't have razor sharp teeth. But anyway, yeah. So that's my interesting fact, is that this whole movie was supposed to be considerably different. They gave Tim Burton ostensibly like a blank check to make whatever he wanted, and he wanted to make this specific movie that he'd already set up over the course of, you know, the first movie. And then he wanted to make a third movie that would be the story of Harvey Dent as Two-Face. Like he wanted to, which they ended up adopting for the Schumacher stuff. But, you know, it's almost like the Schumacher universe is just its own thing, even though there are weird there's connective tissue in terms of like Commissioner Gordon and Alfred.
True.
I think those are the only two actually, but yeah, like there's a piece of me that like really wishes that happened, because I would have liked to have seen Billy D. Williams again. My second favorite thing on the planet is Star Wars, and Lando Calrissian is one of my favorite characters within Star Wars as Two-Face. I would have had two Billy D. Action figures in my house instead of just one.
Caitlin, what were you gonna say before? What was the thing that you wanted to say?
Steve, was there anything else?
Not about that particular fact, but yeah, go ahead.
Cool. Yeah, fucking Two-Face, Two-Face, Billy D. Williams, Christopher Walken instead. There was actually a little bit of I read somewhere that one draft had Christopher Walken as Shreck possibly being Penguin's brother. But what I was going to say earlier was in regards to one, I think it was like, it's not like cartoony, campy or whatever. Like there's some realism. Like it's a superhero movie, but it's not a superhero movie. There's these people in leather rubber costumes, but this might be my favorite Batman costume. I think it might be.
It's up there.
It's more of an armor style instead of the last one, which was like a body, like abs thing, instead of like what it is with that one.
They had time to perfect it from the first one to the second one. They're like, okay, this is what it needs to be.
Yeah. It's actually the worst Batman costume because it doesn't have nipples.
Well, okay, fuck nipples. That as a kid,
butt nipples.
I watched those movies.
What the fuck movie did you watch?
But as like the one sec, rewind. I got a shout out to Air Jordan 6s for the Batman boots.
Yeah, is that in this one as well, or is that just the first movie?
No, the first one was Nike trainers.
Oh, I thought they were Jordans in the first movie too.
No, I don't think so. They were Nike trainers, if I'm not mistaken.
Cool.
This one though, Jordan 6s. Shout out.
This is the one with the Jordans. This, probably made Jordans super popular when people learned that. Probably had something to do with Jordans being so fucking sought after.
His shit was already
popular. Yeah, I'm gonna stick with that theory. That's my going theory. This has been Jason's going theory. This has been this week's Jason's going theory. It's a new segment I'm working on.
That is a good segment to have. I wouldn't mind that being you having some weird batshit, no pun intended, batshit crazy theory each week.
I'm gonna make a note of that actually.
All right.
I think we already tried to Muppetize Batman last time. Right?
So what was like?
Hey, I'm the host here, and this episode isn't over yet. Okay.
It isn't. Not by a long shot. We haven't even.
Plot. We haven't gotten into it.
That's foreshadowing because I do want to talk about the Muppetization of Batman later.
Foreshadowing, there's a lot of good foreshadowing in this movie. Like, Tim Burton does a really good job of foreshadowing.
Penguin literally kills one of his own cronies, who's a big fat idiot, and he dies in the exact same way that Penguin dies at the end of the movie. Spoilers: Penguin dies in this movie.
Also, Penguin kind of comes into life, into this world, and then leaves this world the same way, kind of. Like as a baby in the crib carriage thing, and it floats to that ramp, and then the penguins come get him, and then when he dies, like he falls at that ramp and then goes into the water. There's kind of like a
it's so funny because like there's no other rendition of Penguin in any other Batman universe that exists where the Penguin is raised by penguins. Like, it's so
No.
insane, but it's the visual elements of that entire opening credit scene is like the greatest thing. Like, everything is so hokey. Like, the two parents like downing full martinis as their monster child eats a cat, and then they're like rushing through the park, and they're like, "Oh, Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas!" Like,
Brian made a joke while we were watching the movie that's like the other families they walk by. Oh, it's Matt. The other families there to dump their baby as well, and they just like nod to each other. But if you notice in that scene, the Cobblepots are dressed all in black with a black carriage, and the couple that goes by has a white carriage. I don't know if anybody picked that out, but that's pretty good. Like,
more duality.
Well, there's
more
people that
duality,
think-
and also Tim Burton. Everything he did in this movie was on purpose. Everything means something, and movie making isn't really like, you don't see a lot of that in movie making now, unless you get those real directors who are known for their name on the movie versus what the content of the movie is. And this is Tim Burton, early-ish in Tim Burton's career, right? So it was cool to point out, to see these little moments.
That other family is theorized to be the Waynes, by the way.
What?
Whoa!
Yeah.
I need to rewatch this now.
Well, I mean, they don't have name tags that say
Yeah.
Thomas and Martha
How do you
Wayne.
find out who you are? When he's like, "Oh, I got to find out who my parents are." How the fuck are you going to do that? What do you tell me how you would start that process?
He knew.
He had he could find the birth records or something, right?
Yeah.
But how's
Who
he know
cares?
what birth
He got
records to
raised
look
by
for?
penguins.
What's he looking
Who
for?
cares? He's like munching on a raw fish, and you're like, how does he know who they are? He's like,
Hey, I'll eat a raw fish right now. I eat
Just
sushi.
because I was
Okay.
born with shiny flippers instead of 5 chubby digits.
And 3 fingers. The interesting thing too I want to bring up is that this, for this particular version of Penguin, is the Penguin has gotten he gets more and more normal as time goes on after this too. And he was pretty normal before this, but at least he was like, meh, meh, meh. The Penguin in the Gotham TV show, just a low-level criminal who gets his knee broken and walks kind of like he waddles like a penguin, and they just call him the Penguin. And then the Penguin in the Arkham City games is like this weird Cockney fucking nightmare person who is just a crime boss. And the new Penguin,
he has the bottom
like,
of a
he's
Coke
just
bottle for a monocle. Like,
and the new Penguin,
eye.
the Colin Farrell, I Am Vengeance, the Batman version of Penguin. I Am Vengeance. It's so good. He looks like just a ugly criminal, like a fat, ugly criminal, and he's just known as the Penguin. Steve, if you have any insight as to why that is, please don't tell me, because no, but don't, because I haven't watched any trailers for that movie,
No,
and
I've
only
insights
seen
on that movie. I have insights on the Penguin in general. I'm trying to respond to everything. You're making so many points rapid fire like a fucking machine gun. I want to respond to all of them, and you keep switching from topic to topic. It's like that. He kept moving in one incredibly unbroken sentence, moving from topic to topic so that no one had a chance to interrupt.
I'm vibing on my own new style, so I feel like I have lots to say.
Well,
it's all right here. You know what
lots
it is.
to say
It's
does not equate to shoot off as many fucking like points as you can in a row, because sometimes we got to respond to those points you're making.
No, fair enough. I just my main point there is how they went in a direction with Penguin. They stopped here and did Tim Burton's fucking nightmare villain fuel Penguin, and then it's been progressively getting more and more just straight up crime boss
In
Penguin.
every single rendition of Batman, every time, unless it's part of a continuity, they will reinvent all the characters. They do it every time.
Yes.
Every time they make a new Batman, they try and have a new take on the villains. So every time you watch a new Batman thing, they're going to have a different version of the Riddler, of Mr. Freeze, of the Penguin. They'll all have things that you're familiar with, but they're all going to be slightly different. My favorite Penguin is the version of the Penguin that is meant to be a reflection of Bruce Wayne, where he also grew up in an affluent family, and he was rich as well. His parents are also dead, and it's like these two versions of the same. It's like if you were to bring the coin toss in, it's like how much trauma can you go through before you become an insane monster, or an insane person who is like hell bent on justice. And like
Yeah.
that's sort of the Penguin that I like, and that they kind of utilize that Penguin in this one because he does have rich parents, and you even have that moment where Bruce Wayne is watching the TV and he's like, "I just want to find my parents," and then Batman's like, "He lost his parents."
Yeah, you brought that up while we were watching it. The animated series version of Penguin, I forgot to mention, is like a hybrid too, where he's basically the that poster, where he kind of looks like the Danny DeVito, but he's got a top hat. He's less like gross looking.
Yeah. Again, there's a lot of good foreshadowing in this movie, and we were kind of on that point, and we sort of got sidetracked. But I mean, we could list it all, but I think that like two of the ones that really stood out to me for Catwoman in particular is the Max Shreck's meeting room is like it literally the walls are like padded like an insane asylum. Like they look like a padded room, and it's like this humongous room.
Yeah.
And she's sort of trapped in there in servitude, and she's in there constantly, and you can see her already acting sort of like what you would, especially at the time, like, you know, insane people act insane. Like she's talking to herself, and she's like really down on herself. She's self-deprecating, but like that's not something
played
that you saw
that part
typically
really
from the
well.
time.
Like
I liked it a lot.
And whatever.
Yeah, she did.
To that note, too, to the padded room thing, Steve and Kaylin, when Bruce Wayne is talking to Max Shreck and they're having that, like, they're going back and forth, Batman's sitting on the wall side that has the padded behind him, and Max Shreck has the window behind him, and I couldn't help but feel like Tim Burton implied that in this face-off, the representation is that behind Batman, behind Bruce Wayne, you have the sanity, because it represents the sanity through like the forcing people to be sane, which is what a padded room is. Where behind Max Shreck, he has the whole city and he's in charge. He's in charge of the whole city. He's in charge, and Batman is trying to bring sanity to this. And there's a bit of a flip there because Bruce Wayne does end up getting the upper hand, even though he's kind of the underdog in that fight. By just being like, you want nuts, he kind of just does the same. You want to get nuts, he kind of just gives them that energy. and Max Shreck kind of backs off a little bit. But Max Shreck does have the power because they're both just like businessmen doing business in that scene. They don't know that they're a villain.
I took that a little bit differently in terms of the padded cell wall, which I thought that was supposed to be like Selina Kyle's cage, as Batman also being caged by his insanity. Like Batman is insane. There's no question about it. Like to have him backdropped by the padded wall implies that he should be in a padded room because he dresses up as a bat and beats people up at night. And Max Shreck having the cityscape at his back is Max Shreck wanting to take over the world. Like he is basically like a basic villain with a master plan, and the master plan is that the city will be his.
Like a Falcone.
Yeah, I think that your take is interesting, but I think it's a little bit too it's a little grander than I think what was meant to be represented visually.
Right.
But I don't think that it's a bad take.
I just want to interject for one moment.
Take, or is it as cold as Vichyssoise?
It's all Vichyssoise. It's all very lukewarm. So I want to break some news to you guys. We've actually almost gone an hour.
We have to keep going.
It's quarter after. We're not done. So because tonight's episode was marred in technical difficulties, and because this is a very special episode because it is Batman, we all love the Bat, I think tonight we just go until we're done. And I hate that. I absolutely hate that because I'm of the mind that podcasts should be short, but Steve is of the mind that podcasts should be extra long. And Kaylin has never really given me.
They should be as long as they need to be. I don't think they need to be extra long. They just need to be as long as they need to be.
Kaylin's a goddamn wild card. So for this is a very special edition that's going to go as long as it needs to go because we haven't even gotten to the plot, and I'm sure that our final thoughts are going to take a half hour in and of themselves.
Okay, I have one more really good foreshadowing that I wanted to mention before we get off of that, and let's go right into the plot afterwards.
Okay.
The scene just before Max Shreck pushes Catwoman out of the window, it's all low lighting, and usually when you light low, it's meant to give a sense of insanity or discomfort or horror, and it looks extremely unsettling.
It's similar to the Dutch angle, right?
Here, like it's immediately
Yeah.
more scary looking, right?
But do that and then also give it a slant like this.
Yeah. So okay.
Do the same lighting and then give yourself a slant because
you shouldn't be going through trials that you shouldn't be going through. It's crazy.
But during that scene, it also causes
Master Steve Theater.
her glasses to make this shadow on her face that almost perfectly frames how her mask looks. And it's like this really great sort of like visual representation of like she isn't dead yet. She's still timid. She's scared. A scaredy cat, if you will. And she's pushed right up into a corner, and then she gets blasted out the window. And then
just
again,
the pussy I was looking for.
Ugh. Vishy
Does he say that?
I'm cold on that one. Every time somebody says
just the pussy,
like, this, I'm gonna say Vishy Swaz.
That's a good one.
It's meant to be cold.
Yo, vicious sauce. The fuck is this soup, Alfred?
Damn, it's cold.
Vicious swaz. It's cold. It's vicious swaz, though. You're a billionaire.
There are several other good bits of foreshadowing in this movie, but I think that is the strongest in terms of like.
Why would he serve him cold soup in the winter? Billionaire or no billionaire?
Because it's supposed to be cold.
If you eat something cold when you are already cold, your body regulates, and it actually like helps you to become not warm or hot for a short period of time, but it like regulates the coldness, and you become more comfortable with the cold. Just so you know, if you eat ice cream on a cold spring day or a cold fall day, and you're cold and you start eating it, you'll become more comfortable with the actual temperature around you.
Interesting.
I think about the opposite as well.
I would also find the opposite as well, because I've eaten ice cream in the winter and it sucked. I do think that was intentional screenwriting. So when I was doing Blossom Buddies, I talked a lot about these old sitcoms, and nowadays people make sitcoms to be analyzed. Community, Dan Harmon wanted you to go back and analyze it. Rick and Morty, so meant to be analyzed. This movie, I think that Tim Burton was a pioneer for wanting people to go back and pull movies apart and talk about them. Because I'll tell you right now, it would seem a lot of the time that Blossom had plans for wanting to pull episodes apart. There's nothing there, and this movie has it in spades. Like I want to know his rationale for the vicious wasp scene, because it's it's a gazpacho, it's a cold soup, and Steve's hit the nail on the head. And Batman is totally that kind of guy who's and Alfred's even smarter than Batman. Alfred is like trained Batman, but we don't know any of this. We're just watching the second '80s Batman movie. All this stuff is subtext that's like in the '80s comic books. It's all subtext. That's just like basically Easter eggs.
So, do we want to get into the plot?
I think it would be best. All right, Caleb.
I got a little tidbit.
Yeah.
I got a little tidbit that connects to. So you were talking about Catwoman and the foreshadowing. This isn't exactly associated with that, but with her specifically, at bus stops they have posters. They would like for this movie, they had promotional posters. They kept getting stolen.
Yeah, I would steal one of these posters. It's probably dope as fuck.
I think I knew that as well. Yes, it was. I think the most vandalism in years for bus stops, and people were doing it to specifically steal this poster. And I think the first Batman movie had the same problem.
They're dope.
But also, they're sick. And if you're a poor kid, all I gotta do is smash something and run real fast.
I almost stole Justin Bieber.
What?
Like the man, Justin Bieber?
Like human being?
From Shoppers, they had a cardboard cutout or whatever.
What would you have done with it, though? Just throw it down immediately?
I was going to give it to a friend's daughter.
Oh, cool. That's actually pretty noble. You should have done it.
Uh-oh, we lost you.
No, I muted myself because what I was saying was
Oh.
vile and disgusting.
That's awesome because I was hoping that was the intention of the jokes. That's one of my favorite jokes in anything, and that was awesome. That was great. It's just unfortunate because there was some early shows where your mic would drop out.
Gentlemen, you two hold it down. I'm going to be back in like 30 seconds.
Okay.
All right, we'll hold it down.
Over the plot then.
Steve, as the host of this episode, why don't you run down the plot as quickly as possible? I think that the reason I say that is because I think we've hit a lot of points in our talking about the movie phase.
Yes.
And just because we both know that people who have seen this movie, who are listening to this,
I'm
going to
do a sweep. I'm not going to do a detail. I'll do a sweep.
Okay, cool. So why don't you run us down?
Okay. So this movie takes place during the winter season, Christmas. There's Christmas everywhere. The opening of the movie, the credits, one of the most amazing credit scenes that I think exists in a Batman movie. Most movies now, they don't really rely on huge opening credit scenes, but this one is basically the Penguin being born, his parents being horrified by his birth, and them throwing him in a river. All the while, music being played by Danny Elfman as he floats through the sewer system. As you said, I said, this almost looks like it's black and white, which it's not, but it looks black and white, and it's beautiful. And then he's rescued in an abandoned zoo by...
I know you hate this, Steve. Can I pause for 1 second? Brian, guest of the show, said something great in the chat. According to legend, Vichyssoise is served cold because when it was served to King Louis XV, it went through so many taste testers that it arrived lukewarm, and that's how he liked it.
I like it.
Very
so
good.
I
Ryan,
guess
you should
that's
do this every episode. You should drop a weird fact into the chat every episode.
But the chat doesn't stay. The chat doesn't stay on the video. But what I will say is, I'll say anything that is said in the chat, as long as it's not racist.
We'll call them Highgate Legends.
Highgate Legends. It's a new. I'm going to write that down.
Okay.
Highgate Legends, new segment. We're coming up with new segments left and right on this show. We got Master Steve Theater. We got Jason's Hot Takeaway and Highgate
Legends. Okay, so
I got a movie title said.
All right.
And that's when Batman returns.
No, he goes, I am Batman returns. So the Penguin is found by penguins. All of that happens within the opening credits. Then we get the opening sequence of Selina Kyle and Bruce Wayne, both sort of showing what they're up to, but it is the mayoral campaign is sort of being introduced, while also the tree lighting is happening. During the tree lighting, which is hosted by Max Shreck, he's the one lighting the tree. An attack happens that's orchestrated by the Penguin. Batman shows up and beats a bunch of people up. And then we also get Selina Kyle. She gets attacked during the attack by some shitty clown guy who gets beat up by Batman, and then she takes his taser, which is important later. Then we get sort of like this Penguin Man legend that is reiterated several times over the next 20 minutes or so, while Batman is sort of trying to figure out what's been going on with this triangle gang. And Selina Kyle is continuously shown to be weak, timid, and not great at her. Well, she's not bad at her job. She's very good at her job. She just
actually, it was more of a question.
Constantly. Yeah.
The scene with her answering machine, and then the re-scene with her answering machine are two of the best parts of that
Tim
movie.
Burton.
Oh, I believe that.
That guy's voice, Tim Burton.
I don't want you to be seen as an appendage. My therapist says I don't need an appendage.
My therapist.
Yeah.
Then they do the Penguin reveal to the world, which is Oswald Cobblepot staging a baby napping or kidnapping. Oh no, it's the hideous Penguin Man. And then, please don't kill me. And then he comes out of the sewer and he's like,
here's your baby back.
Or whatever.
The hideous
Your baby back
Penguin Man.
ribs.
And then this sort of like spawns the city into being like, maybe the hideous penguin man isn't horrible after all. And that's the scene that I talked about where Batman sees him on TV and he's like, I hope he finds his parents. Like that's, and like, that's sort of like the one moment in the movie where you're like, oh yeah, Batman does have a heart and he's not just horny. Because the rest of the movie is him just being horny for Catwoman.
So he's tongue-tied. He's tongue-tied. When he meets hot Selina Kyle, he's tongue-tied by her, which you never see billionaire playboy Bruce Wayne tongue-tied by women. And he fumbles and he's like bad at, like when he's Batman fucks up a bunch when he tries to deal with, because he's just horny for Catwoman.
I mistook me for someone else. One of my favorite lines.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mistook me for somebody else.
I thought that was a joke because the way it's like, when I watched it the other night with you guys, I was like, is he joking? Like when she says, he's like, and then she says Bruce Wayne, and then he says, mistook me for someone else. I thought he was making a joke to be like, no, I'm not Bruce Wayne. And then it's like, oh no, he was being a horny man. A horny man who's done no work during horny time.
But I mean, look at that scene compared. It's true, she did. But look at that scene compared to Bruce Wayne in. I know it's a different director and different writer, but Bruce Wayne, the version of Bruce Wayne in Christopher Nolan verse in Batman Begins, when he meets that girl and she's like, I want to go swimming. And he's like, whatever, you swim wherever you want, lady. And they jump into like a pool in the restaurant. And then the guy's like, you can't do that. And he's like, I just bought this place. Like that's billionaire playboy. To see him.
The difference between the Christopher Nolan Batman and the Tim Burton Batman is that the Tim Burton Batman is bound to his position as Batman and nothing else. And so when he sees something that he wants, he gets flubby and he doesn't really know how to deal with it. Whereas the Christopher Nolan Batman is like, Rachel, only Rachel. So it's like nothing else actually matters to him. So these dumb women that are in his life are just there to be literally like accessories to his Bruce Wayne persona. To
prove that he's just a billionaire. Don't worry about all the cool electronics that our company makes.
I like that in a different way than I like this. Like I like Bruce Wayne sometimes having a little bit of like fallibility and like, because like at the end of the day, Catwoman I think is always meant to be the foil to Bruce Wayne and Batman because he.
Yeah.
Would you call her really similar? Hero?
Absolutely, I would. Would we call her an anti-hero? Absolutely, I would. And it really reminds me.
In this movie, but in general,
the mythos,
maybe a little bit in this movie, but like she's.
I think in this movie because she does do some crime fighting in this movie, but she also is crazy, so she's still like I'll fucking cut you, woman.
She what I want to say for seemingly no reason. I think that Max Shreck owned it. I think that's why she blew it up. But
it's one of his department stores.
Yeah.
The thing that I wanted to bring up here, though, is Catwoman and the Black Cat and Spider-Man. Obviously, Black Cat is inspired by Catwoman, but it's the same story where the superhero has the people in their masks are in love, and in real life they can't coexist. Because Felicia Hardy is one of Peter Parker's girlfriends at one point, but she's a bit older and it's a different. Yeah, it's like Spider-Man is very similar to Batman. That every iteration of it is they spin the characters in a new way with a new thing every time.
The only difference is that they never really try and make a nitty-gritty, hard, spooky, terrifying Spider-Man. Spider-Man is always
Let's do it.
Yeah, it's always going to be. Well, they did try to do that actually. They tried to do that with the Amazing Spider-Man movies. They tried to make it gritty, and it sucked.
But it's still it still felt like they're teenagers and whatever.
The Amazing Spider-Man. No, they're both objectively bad. The only good thing with the second one is the costume.
I prefer the Sam Raimi emo Spider-Man to the Amazing Spider-Man, where he's emo. Literally, he's
a dick. He's wisecracking when he becomes Spider-Man. He does become wisecracking, but he becomes cruel. And Spider-Man's wisecracking as Spider-Man after he gets his powers, but he's never cruel. And the Amazing Spider-Man, he's such a dickhead in that first movie. He's such a dickhead.
Yeah. He reminds me if I got Spider-Man powers. That's what I would be like.
Fuck you!
I'm so strong now, I don't give a fuck. Anyway, the plot continues on, and it boils down to Max Shreck tries to murder Selina Kyle after she figures out what he's actually doing, which is to create a power plant that he can just become rich off of, and without worrying about the detriment to Gotham or the world.
Where's the power coming from that he's sucking up?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's a comic book movie. It does not matter.
Why am I the only one asking these questions? Why am I the one asking?
Are you going to also be like, why do they still have a zoo? A decommissioned zoo?
Then why is that zoo so horrifying? Nobody wants to go to that zoo. No wonder it's shut down.
Chemical waste?
Yeah.
Maybe. Who cares? It's just Tim Burton is all about interesting set pieces and interesting settings, and just having broad strokes of evil without it having to really. You don't need to think about it so much. You just need to.
Why does Bruce Wayne have 6 mirrors to make sure that the Bat logo shines right into his study?
Because he needs to do this.
I lived in this apartment. I lived in this apartment in Halifax, and it overlooked downtown Halifax, and I used to stand in the window with. It was when I lived in the rooming house. I think you were there a couple times. I used to stand with my arm on the window like this and just look out on the city and pretend I was Batman, but really I was just broke. I was reverse Batman.
I
broke man.
I worked with a guy one time that we had just completed a project, a major project, and he had been the lead on it, and he didn't do a particularly great job of the project. And he was talking to me, and he's like, Steve, I think that once this project is complete, and he got up and he started pacing back and forth in front of this big window over Chinatown in downtown Toronto, and he's like, I think I might resign. And he stood at the window and crossed his arms behind his back like Morpheus. And he's like, I think that I need to move on to different things. And he started looking out over the street, and I was like, what the fuck? Are you becoming a supervillain right now?
That guy took himself super seriously too, and I worked with that guy as well. And he took himself very seriously. We're not going to name names, obviously. To the point that he had this girlfriend who would come around. She was very timid and shy. He tried to play an alpha around her, but he was a pretty nerdy dude. And then as soon as she was gone, he would go back to cosplaying as the boss.
Yeah. Anyway, that's my closest experience to a supervillain maybe being born. I need to move on to different things. The noir lighting, great. Oh, sorry, no, we're still on the plot. She gets thrown out the window. She's resurrected by cats, I guess. Again,
Magic.
I think that.
As a kid, I thought that the cats licked her wounds, but really what happens is her main cat comes and licks her, and then one cat licks her finger that has blood on it, and that cat is a mysterious magical cat that gives her cat powers. But then she goes up to her apartment immediately and puts together this nightmare costume with these horrid claws made of actual fucking needles.
Are those real
Also
sewing
very
things?
good-
Were those thimbles with something on them?
There were thimbles with needles twisted onto them. It's fucking nightmarish.
It's probably a real thing in sewing. There's probably some sort of claw finger that you use to stretch fabric and sew or something. I feel like that's a real thing, but I don't know.
No, it was literally a thimble with thick needles on it, needles that you put into a sewing machine.
Who's to say that's not real? Not me. I never knitted. I never sewed. I don't
Well,
know
Matt,
how to
my
make
wife,
clothing.
my wife has all. I've got a whole room of that stuff upstairs. My wife does that, so I've never seen
Imagine
claw
at this point
fingers.
Right now, claw fingers came into frame and just scratched. And then Madison
This
took
is
the
it.
podcast. Anyway, so also a very good recreation of that scene where she first comes home and checks her answering machine, where
I forgot.
she comes in and
I'm
she's
not
like, "Honey,
married."
I'm home. Oh, I forgot I'm not married." And they just literally same framing, same exact sort of actions, but she's a zombie now, where her head is bleeding and her clothes are all torn, and she's just ugh, and she drinks.
She smashes the fluorescent light to say "fucking hell" here. That says hello there. She smashes the hell here. I love that.
Yeah.
I want a hell
too,
here fluorescent like piece of art.
No, I agree. I would have that in my house. But I also feel like, were there not other words they could have chosen that like would have been more appropriate? But like, I guess hell here is fine.
Hello,
Hello there.
We also have to remember that this is like 1992 or something, or whatever the year, 1993. I can't remember what year.
92, yeah, 92.
The studio thought that change from Hello There. I'm wildly theorizing, but I'm sure that Tim Burton wrote that down, or this team of screenwriters wrote that down, and the studio went nuts for it. The studio probably went absolutely
like,
nuts
green light,
for it.
They loved it?
Yeah. I think.
It was perfectly framed though, like her window, that neon lighting, and then her in the black like leather with the stitches. Like my favorite part for her costume, like, because if it was just black, like it would have been so plain and boring. But to have those like stitches, and then the way the way her face was framed in it with the little ears and shit.
Yeah, and the one like almost Spider-Man eye, but the other eye is like a weird oval.
Yeah,
it's so cool.
Yeah. Like I said, she's like her costume is like a Tim Burton sketch. Like it looks like a live action version of like what somebody would wear on stage if they recreated The Nightmare Before Christmas, like for a musical or something.
It also reminds me of a pro wrestling costume. Like if you could make a pro wrestler out of that idea.
Remind you of a pro wrestler costume.
Yeah, I do love pro wrestling, but I don't think there could be like a Batman in wrestling.
Well,
I think that would look ridiculous.
Can there be capes?
Dude, have you ever watched any wrestling in the 1970s? Every wrestler had a cape.
Say that every single like luchador wrestler is basically
all luchadors.
Batman.
Most luchadors have capes, specifically.
Mask, right?
Yeah, and
that's yes.
So that's basically a Batman.
Okay, well, to be fair, Marvel has this. Okay, so there's this company in Mexico called AAA, and they have an actual working relationship with Marvel. So when they do their big pay-per-view, they have a segment where they do a 3-on-3 match, a luchador mask, and they have these characters licensed: Spider-Man, Venom, Thanos, Hulk, Captain America, Deadpool. And they come out and wrestle each other, and it's its own microcosm storyline. No, it's a 3-on-3 thing. It's usually the good guys versus the bad guys. Yeah. So you've covered the first act of the movie.
Yeah, we got through the first act. This is around the point when he causes the trapdoor to open. Max Shreck falls into the sewer, and then he shows Max Shreck, like, we can be partners. And he's like, why would I want to help you? You're a penguin man in an abandoned zoo, or whatever. And then,
we're the clown group.
Yeah, and then the penguin, shows him all the evidence, blackmails him. The evidence being horrific. All of it is, like, scary. Even when he pulls out, like, he's like, I would have seen that such documents were shredded. And he's like, a lot of scotch tape and a lot of patience. He just has like
I would have reversed that. I would have done, so he's like, a lot of tape and a little patience. I'm like, no. That's like, you need a little tape and a lot of patience for what he did.
I mean, like, I got that. Yeah, that guy you killed and threw away. I got his hand.
Yeah. Hey, it's me, Frank's hand.
That is a good, like, everything the Penguin says is great. Like, he is so good in every single scene, and every line of dialogue that the Penguin delivers is amazing. And he also has
Jason,
like the
I think you're correct
line.
though. I think it is Penguin's movie.
I think it's a Penguin movie.
Batman is not.
I think Selina Kyle is.
Penguin is the star.
No. And there are Batman movies, like Batman '89. Batman is the main character, and his foil is the Joker, and that's a great duality there too. But this is, I think that the studio wanted something new. I think that Tim Burton wanted to try something different. I think that the team of writers that wrote the script probably wanted to like.
His only sequel.
Also, his name is Daniel Waters, and he wrote the movie Heathers, which is a very movie. it is hard to watch because it's so all over the place, and then you watch this and you're like, oh wait, yeah, it makes complete sense that this guy wrote both these movies. Also, never worked in Hollywood again after this. This script was not appreciated by the Hollywood system, and it's too messy, and there's too much going on for you to properly watch it as a movie. We love it, but like there are plenty of people that would watch this and be like, I don't know what the fuck. Who am I rooting for?
It's
because
somebody
you're sort
born
of meant to root for everybody, but also root for nobody at the same time.
That's
so 7 years ago was like 2014, right? 2013. If you were born in 2013, I was 7 years old when I saw this movie because it came out in '92. If you were 7 years old now and you saw this movie, you would like. There's so many other things going on that I don't think you would be captivated by this. But when we were kids in the early '90s, there was nothing. It was boring as shit. Everything was stupid and boring. And a movie, any dumb movie. That's why so many bad movies get made to this day, but got made especially like back then. That's not really a point. That's just bad movies always get made. This movie is a fantastic movie, but if this movie came out now, I don't think it would be received very well.
Well, I think that's something that like Tim Burton had harnessed earlier in his career, was that he was able to loop you in via visuals and striking, distinct visual style that a lot of people didn't have, but also, highlighted by Danny Elfman's score and the fact that you're utilizing a beloved character. It's a sequel. I know that you just hypothesized on what Tim Burton's abilities were for this movie, but they gave him essentially a blank check with whatever you want to do, you can do. All you need to follow is no Harvey Dent as Billy D. Williams. You have to have the Penguin, and you have to have Selina Kyle. And when they opened up the auditions for Selina Kyle, they're like, whatever, we can just interview every hot person in Hollywood. And when they went to the Penguin, everybody, like Tim Burton was like, well, it's Danny DeVito.
Obviously Danny DeVito.
There's no question.
But
like, we have to get Danny DeVito.
I think she had only really, I think her biggest movie to this point had been Scarface, right?
Sounds fair.
Michelle Pfeiffer? Yeah.
Michelle Pfeiffer, yeah.
Michelle Pfeiffer.
This is early. This is before Dangerous Minds, and after Dangerous Minds, I think that's 94, 95. After Dangerous Minds, she starts to show up in like everything. But she was a relative. She wasn't a relative unknown, but she was. I think Scarface was the last point. Sorry, Steve. I didn't mean to frustrate you with that. I don't know if you seemed frustrated.
Oh no! I'm not frustrated.
You went like this. Well, I don't know if that's your agreeing face.
I agree with you. I agree. No. I'm not frustrated. I just know the answer. That's why I'm like.
Oh, okay.
Come on.
Sorry.
I know what I'm saying.
Go ahead.
Michelle Pfeiffer was chosen not because of any of her other roles, but because she was the dimensions that they wanted to do for the Tim Burton thing. But again, like you're saying,
put that girl in a leather cat suit.
She was not a household name at that point. But like when I was a kid, I was watching this movie and being like, these must be the most famous people who ever fucking lived. Like, because it's Batman too. Like these people must be.
Michael Keaton's next movie is Multiplicity. So
I like
that movie where he played a snowman. He played a snowman in that one movie, I think. That's family comedy. Jack Frost. He played Multiplicity, and then he did nothing until Birdman.
Yeah, what about Jackie Brown?
What about the?
That's like 95.
Mark Wahlberg and Will Ferrell, where he's like a cop detective chief, and then he also
the other guys.
Yeah.
But that was before Birdman, and I think he came. That was his comeback. But I've never seen Jackie Brown. I've seen every Tarantino movie except for that.
Oh man, we gotta do a Tarantino month.
Holy shit, that's a really good movie. It's one of
I know it is.
It's one of my favorite Tarantino.
Yeah, Tarantino year.
But it's not a bloodbath. If you go in, don't expect like a
This is before Tarantino. This is before Tarantino sort of fell off on his scripts and started doing passion projects. Where how many times can we say the N word? That's one of his good movies. That's one of his good movies, and I know I do love Django Unchained, but it's true that there was a turn for Tarantino. Anyway, this is the movie Batman Returns, and Steve was running down the plot, and we're pushing time now, buddy.
We're not pushing nothing. We're taking
All right.
as long
Well,
as it
I mean, we
takes.
don't really have to get to because again, the plot of this movie is very malleable, and it's not really important to why the movie's good. They convince the city that Oswald Cobblepot is a viable candidate for mayor. They get him into a position where he could potentially win as mayor. That's when Batman starts to realize that something is not right, and they have a meeting. Batman and Penguin, and Catwoman shows up as she destroys a department store in a very erotic scene where she decapitates some mannequins.
And she did that herself.
And the movie escalates at that point where, it's all three of them realizing that no one is who they seem, but they're all sort of
you forgot a plot point. You forgot a plot point, Steve. Basically, Catwoman and Penguin get together before she destroys the department store.
I wasn't done, but yeah, I got it. It's after.
No, that's before this, because she smashes up the store and then they go up to the roof and then they push the princess queen of the city off the roof.
You didn't get there yet.
That's the second time they go to the roof.
Oh,
they have to fight on the roof.
I thought that was all in the same building. My bad.
I mean, I understand why you would be confused by that because it's rooftops in Gotham. They all look the same.
Oh, then she blows up the building. Yeah, it's fuck. I'm sorry. I apologize.
There's a scene
were you going?
where Batman, Catwoman, and Penguin all meet for the first time together.
Yes.
And that's when she backflips a million times out of the convenience store, or not the convenience store, the department store, and she's like, "Meow. I am woman, hear me roar." I can't remember what she says, but
she does 10 backflips up to them and says, "Meow."
Right. And then Penguin's like, "Gotta fly."
Yeah.
Great. And then Batman and Catwoman have a little bit of a fight, and then she falls out the building, and she gets saved by kitty litter.
Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, cool. I'm going to have to plug my phone in very soon.
Okay, anyway, so then they
Is
have
that a problem?
And they
No.
She eats a bird, he threatens a cat, they decide to work together to convert the big old bat. Ooh, I did a Dr. Zeus. And
Dr. Zeus?
Dr. Zeus. They want to make sure that Batman
Dr.
is
Zeus.
thought of as a villain just like they are, so they devise a plan to kidnap the Princess of Christmas or whatever the fuck her position is. She's like a supermodel or whatever. Again, Max Shreck is very much a Donald Trump style character, and he loves his beauty queen. So they kidnap her, and Catwoman sort of feigns being her friend. And,
she also acts.
And then the Penguin comes in and goes I can't remember what he says, but he throws an umbrella with a bunch of bats in it and it makes her fall off. And then everyone's like, "Batman, push that lady!"
It says lawn dart. I think it says lawn dart.
I think you're right.
Lawn dart.
Lawn dart.
And then the Christmas tree is full of bats, and everybody thinks Batman's a bad guy, which doesn't really ever fully pay off. Remember the scene where Commissioner Gordon is like, "This evidence is completely circumstantial," and it's like a batarang, and you're like, I don't know if they'd show that on TV, but whatever, it's Gotham City. Rules don't apply. Anyway, the last act of the movie is so convoluted and crazy that all the details don't matter. What happens is they end up in the zoo, and Batman is there, Penguin is there, and Catwoman is there, and Max Shreck is there.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I switched to earbuds. I might sound a little bit more tinny now, but I have to.
What if they get stuck in your ear?
What?
They will, and they've taken me over like a.
All right, Kalen, what's your point?
You were the tree, the bats, and then I think, if I'm not mistaken, it gets to the point where he falls, or him and her have that little one-on-one, if I'm not mistaken. And
that
then
happens earlier in the movie.
That was earlier?
That happens earlier in the movie, yeah.
Okay, my apologies.
I skipped over that point because I'm just trying to get through like the bulk of it so we can get to the end. That happens a couple times. They see mistletoe a few times in the movie, and like,
well, it's twice
when they're at the masquerade ball. Yeah, couple two. Then they say the same line that they said to each other on the rooftop, and
but
they realize,
reverse.
yeah, and she's like immediately concerned, being like, "Do we have to start fighting now?" And it's like when she's not wearing her mask, she's very much Selina Kyle. When she's not, she's like, it's like she has a very defined sort of like breaking point. But she also seems like Batman, where he does as well. Like when he's Batman, he's Batman. When he's Bruce, he's Bruce. And then they all end up at that same ball. Max Shreck gets kidnapped. The Penguin is like, "I'm taking your kid," or whatever. And he's like, "No, please. Punish me. Not my son, Chip, or whatever his name is. I can't remember." I don't remember what his name
Someone
is.
sign this guy up.
What's the kid's name? The Max Shreck's son?
Chip.
I can't remember. Is it Chip? I got it right? Okay,
Yeah.
good. And then he's like, "You got a good point. Let's go. Get in the back."
Are we at the masquerade in the story?
Yeah, I'm just trying to power through it to get to the end.
Okay, because I thought I wanted to talk about the masks.
Very good
All right.
point.
I mean,
Very
you know
good
what?
point.
Fine. Let's just talk about it as we go. I have to go to the washroom. I'll be right back.
Okay, so there's
shit.
two things I wanted to bring up. When they're at the masquerade party, in the background, I think it's the Wonders of the World party. But since there's only 7 Wonders of the World, it's like other things that like Carmen Sandiego would steal. We also see. Did you see this? Did you point this out to yourself?
Oh man, we can hear a pig.
We can really hear the full pee. It's incredible. This is why we don't go longer than an hour. Like it's proof.
That's a nice stream. That's a nice stream.
I hate this so much.
It sounds
This is like
clean too. Like there's no sprinkle.
This is the absolute. This is my night.
We have to roll with it. We have to roll with it. It's still going.
Can you guys hear
Yo,
me?
how do you
peeing?
want to address this? Can he hear us right now?
How can you hear me peeing?
I can hear you
Because you have your thing.
What? I didn't know there was a microphone in this. I'm sorry. Oh no.
He's washing his hands. He's flushing the toilet.
That's good.
So okay, so that was fun.
I
My
don't know
worst
how
nightmare is for the whole
this
internet
whole
to hear
episode
me pee.
canceled now because I peed on stream.
No. It's all good.
I thought
Yeah.
it was my phone microphone. I didn't realize this even had a
in the
microphone.
live stream. The rules for microphones on headphones aren't really super. So the only thing I wanted to say about the masquerade is that there's a literal old school Flash. The Flash with like the tin thing on his head. That's sort of lost us now that we've heard him pee live on stream.
What's
Are
happening?
you still peeing or are you getting a glass of water now?
This is a glass of wine.
Ooh.
Oh God!
You're converting
now everybody
wine
knows
to
what
water.
my penis sounds like when it evacuates itself.
I loved it.
Sometimes
the other thing I wanted to,
I have small dick peas, and sometimes I have big dick peas.
I get
Let's
that.
not talk about it anymore, and we'll find a way to remove that segment
No,
somehow.
we can't. So I wanted to bring up another thing that Brian Highgate Tales brought up while we were watching the movie. The next scene is kind of like Penguin and Selina Kyle are like, yes, we fucked over Batman, we screwed him over. And Penguin, from that previous scene, I don't know if you brought it, if you talked about it, but Penguin sort of says, yeah, we'll take down the Batman and then we'll fuck. And Catwoman's like, I love the Batman. We're not gonna fuck. She doesn't say that outright, but she implies it heavily with her, like, don't touch me, fuck. And then it's after the fact, and then Penguin's like, yeah, now we fuck, right? And she's like, no, what are you talking about? And he hangs her with his, like, gotta fly device.
Umbrella.
And Brian Highgate Legends points out that he's an incel. The Penguin has real incel energy, and through this whole movie,
Incel?
incel.
Yeah, no, I
involuntary
was,
celibacy.
ironically enough, I don't know if it's ironically or coincidentally enough, but I was peeing at that point when that joke happened, or when Brian said that. And I came back in and was very confused because Jason was like, I'm writing that down. Incel energy, penguin. And I was like, he does, but I wonder what happened while I was gone.
It was that after this whole shit happens, after this whole bit, I
Right.
think it's at the plaza. Batman shows up. He puts that cool thing over his car.
Yeah.
That's the $70 billion of CGI. The whole budget for this movie was putting this fucking. And
Shield.
I had the action figure of the Batmobile when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And
And
it came with the thing that was the thinnest plastic. It got destroyed almost immediately.
Yeah, I actually kept mine in good shape, but I remember when I tried to store it, it got like crushed by like Ninja Turtles action figures or something.
It would get those little. It was so thin that it would get those little cracks on the bottom, and eventually it was just whatever. Whoa.
Was that loud? What are you, jacked? Is that what's happening?
Time, Kalen. Get it. You don't have it. One of us. The point is, I think that the Penguin is an insult, and I'm glad that people don't know about this subplot in this movie, because I think Penguin would end up being the poster child for. Kalen, do you know what an incel is?
Involuntary celibacy.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I thought you were trying to be like, I don't know what that is, but.
Well, I'm a little dumb.
No. That's not what I said.
That also
That's
doesn't
not
mean
what I
you're
meant.
dumb if you don't know what that means. It just means you're not like.
Yeah,
aware
lots of people don't know what incels are because they are them.
No,
And they're.
regardless, I'm still a little dumb.
Okay, well, we're not arguing that. We're saying you're not dumb for not knowing that is a thing.
Yeah.
But also,
This
you did
podcast
know it
is
was a
completely
thing.
off the rails.
Anyway,
Tangents.
we need to stop this tangential talk because we're still on the clock, even though we've kind of opened the clock to being open for however long we want to speak.
I'll cheers to that.
The sweet irony of me being the host for the episode that goes 2 hours.
Yeah. We don't have to go for 2 hours, but
No, we're not. We're not. Okay, I'm
We're
the host
already
of the
there.
show. Steve, just tell us what happens at the end of this movie, please.
Okay. So the Penguin is attempting to not just he at first he's attempting to kidnap all the firstborn sons, and then he abandons that plan and decides to just blow all children up and all people up with his rocket penguin brigade.
So anyway, I started blasting.
I believe he says something along the lines of,
I'm gonna kill all your children, boys and girls, to the point that you won't even be able to recognize them because rockets will be flown into their erogenous zones.
there's something crazy like that where you're like, what the fuck? Like they're going to be blown to pieces to the point that you won't be able to recognize the difference between boys and girls. But it's like written in a very Heathers-y way. Like you can tell the writer of Heathers wrote this, where when you watch Heathers, you're like, no teenagers speak like this. But when it comes out of the Penguin, you're like, I mean, he's been in the sewer a long time. Maybe he planned this speech.
He kind of sounds like Chucky from the Chucky television program.
Yeah. And
He's black.
yeah, he kind of abandons his plan to kidnap and destroy the firstborn sons and just decides to kill everybody. There is a great Batman going through and he has like a radar going off to detect all the penguins, like, but it's not going. It's going. Like he like programmed his computer to sound like penguins. It's really good. And he eventually, figures out how to make the penguins go crazy. I can't remember exactly. Is it like a scrambler, or does he destroy like a radio tower or something? I don't know.
He recorded the Penguin when he took over his Batmobile, when he was telling him what he was going to do.
No, not the part where he's like,
you gotta face it. I played.
He had a thing. He had a thing that made all the penguins.
Like a hawk from hell.
Yeah, he had a thing that made the penguins go to positions.
Yeah.
And the Batman just like signal jammed.
Yeah. Like computer.
I mean, the part where he plays the penguins, like he's kind of like doing like he's doing like a DJ thing. and he plays back the Penguin's voice over and he's like, I didn't say that or whatever. But like, you know, I played this stinking city like a harp from hell is like a great line.
I love that line.
And then everybody starts throwing fruit at him, and he's like blocking it with his umbrella, and then he just starts shooting into the crowd.
Lettuce and tomatoes. Where do they get lettuce and tomatoes from?
You always bring that to a political discourse.
Yeah, it's a comic book movie,
and also
man. Everybody's loaded with produce. If you're about to make a speech or some sort of comedy act or any kind of public performance, if you're in a comic book movie, everybody in the crowd is loaded with 1 or 2 heads of lettuce and a few tomatoes, and you better be expecting.
Well, you know what? Tomato and salt's pretty good.
So at the end of this movie, they all have sort of a standoff where the Catwoman is there, the Batman is there, the Penguin is there, and Max Shreck is in a giant bird cage, like hanging over. He's like, "Somebody please save me!" And they have a bit of a face-off, and it's fine. Where it's like the Batman sort of takes out the Penguin, and it's not really like this huge sort of epic Marvel-style battle. It's just the Batman shows up, and he has to try to convince Catwoman to not be evil anymore, and she says like, no, I still want to kill Max Shreck.
Yeah.
And he rips off his mask and
how much does it bother you that they fucking
his eyes are not shaded?
The makeup, the eye makeup, how much does that
we talked about this. This is the only part of the movie we actually rewound.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to talk about now. How much did it drive you crazy? It drives me crazy so much.
It doesn't drive me crazy because I never noticed when I was a kid.
It out.
Yeah. When I was a kid, I never noticed it, and then I noticed it when we were watching it. It doesn't drive me crazy. I mean, because, okay, the implication, if he rips it off and he has those black eyeliner things...
Obviously, you can't do that.
Is that he needs to turn into Batman within a split second, right? Like, he needs to go down
they should not have showed that. They should have had his arm over it. Like, that's all they needed to do to fix that scene was just not show that part of it. Do you know what I mean? Like, just start from here.
Right. Okay, so then that's the solution. I'm saying what the reason is that he didn't have like big black eyes on when he pulls it off is because like you then are like, wait, he paints that shit on before he goes out. How long would that take?
I think the new Batman movie is going to have that. Because I think in the trailer you see him with the it looks smoky, like it's like black right here, but then he looks like he just goes like.
Oh right, yeah.
Which I'm like, who fucking cares? Like,
I guess the movie.
You guys both have glasses?
Sorry.
Okay, 1 second.
Steve, how does the movie end? He's going to go get his glasses.
The movie ends by Selina Kyle telling Batman that she needs to take out Max Shreck. She knocks Batman down as the Penguin is like coming back from the dead, and he's bleeding so much. Like, he has so much black ooze coming out of his mouth, and he picks up an umbrella to try and shoot them, and he picks up the one with all the the elephants and shit on it. And he's like, I picked up the cute one. He drops it and he rolls to the ground, and the Penguin, and he slides into the water. But then Selina Kyle gets shot a bunch more times, and she's counting down her lives, which I really like. I don't know, ever since I was a kid, I really like that.
I've always liked it.
I played it as gospel. When you're a kid and you believe. I believe that the cat was magic as well when I was a kid.
My whole life, I thought the Catwoman's power is that she has 9 lives.
Exactly.
Right? Then you get to be an adult and you learn.
And you realize she's just a normal person.
Batman's whole rogues gallery are all just a bunch of mentally deranged people.
Yeah.
That don't actually have superpowers.
So she's
including that.
It's almost like if he was to shoot her 2 more times, she would believe that her life was over, and then she would die.
And be like, yeah.
But because she's getting shot and thinks I have a couple more lives left, and then she grabs the grounding wire and does the crazy kiss or whatever and shocks him to the point that he turns into a Beetlejuice style skeleton.
Call back to the first Batman when Joker handshakes the guy and then he fries.
Yeah. It's a hot town on a town tonight.
A hot town in a cold town tonight.
Yeah. That was a good one, yeah. But it is sort of similar to that end scene in the first Batman, like that when they're like when he's lying there and
as
like the giggle back.
host of this program, I have to warn you guys that we are 15 minutes away from 2 hours.
Okay, let's just end it then.
No, we're almost done.
No, I mean, Steve has to say like 3 more things that happen in this movie. Basically, the final scene is after all this shenanigans goes down, is it cuts to Bruce Wayne driving through Gotham City, and he sees the silhouette of Catwoman dancing
He
across the
sees
building.
$250,000.
And he goes down, he's like, stop the car. And he goes down an alleyway, and then what happens?
It pans up to a Gotham City skyline, and you see a Catwoman head look up into the sky.
And Steve, and Kaylin, actually, you guys, I know Steve knows. Kaylin, do you know what's a very weird, specific thing about that final scene with Catwoman's head
It's not
looking
Michelle
up at the sky?
Pfeiffer. It cost $250, and it was done like shortly before the movie got released, like last minute.
Yeah.
$250,000.
So
do you know
they
what
wanted
it is, though?
to. Yeah, go ahead.
Pardon?
Do you
Do you know what it
I
is?
mean, I can say it. I know, but do you?
Do I know what is?
All right,
what the
tell us
head
if
is?
you don't know.
What the head is? Who it is?
Yeah.
No.
Hit him with.
They did it so many times with different actors, and they're like, it's not right because Michelle Pfeiffer has a very thin neck and a very round head, and they tried several times to recreate it, and they couldn't do it.
With
so
actors.
what they did was they made an animatronic Michelle Pfeiffer, and it's literally like
No way.
like a robot. Yeah.
How come I didn't find that in my research?
Because you are a poor researcher.
Shots fired
I will
here on
accept that
this
L.
week's
I will
episode.
accept that L, and I will apologize, and I will try to step up my game.
So that was the plot of the Batman Returns movie. So I
2
want to turn
hours
it now.
later.
I want to. I want to end this because not only is this too long for an episode of anything, I want to go do something else now. But just since Steve was on a roll, why don't you give us your final thoughts and your rating for this movie? That way I can chart how long I can talk for.
All right, I'll try and keep it short.
You already said everything that you like about this. I know that
this
your
doesn't count
favorite
as my
superhero
end part
movie,
you're talking.
your favorite superhero is Batman. I knew that before this, but the fact that this episode went 2 hours speaks volumes about how the 3 of us all love Batman. We didn't just talk about Batman Forever tonight, or Batman Returns tonight. We talked about
we did talk about Batman
Returns
Forever.
We talked about Batman Forever, but we didn't really talk about the movie Batman Forever that much. It's sweet irony.
I would love to do the other Batmans at some point, just to be like,
hey,
what
did
are
you
your
see the
thoughts
picture
on
of Max
Batman
Shreck
Forever?
with Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Oh, we forgot to talk about that even. There's that scene, remember where he shows all the pictures on the wall? One was Sammy Davis Jr. Steve, when we were watching it live, he was like, is that Epstein? Is that Jeffrey Epstein? But it was Arnold Schwarzenegger.
He had a real Epstein vibe going on.
Yo, Ghislaine Maxwell, she's in the hot seat. We'll see what happens.
Well, she's
Yeah,
gonna
let's
die in
not
prison.
talk about this. This is going to date our podcast. And also maybe raise
maybe this
red
movie
wine.
we're talking about.
We're recording live from 1992. We just saw the new Batman Returns.
Thanks for coming in, Lucas. Okay, Steve, what's your final thought on this movie? I want to go play Final Fantasy 14.
Okay, my final thought on this movie is, again, this is the first Batman movie I ever saw in theaters. I was a little boy, and it scared me a lot. The nose biting scene where Oswald Cobblepot comes down in his dirty pajamas, his sewer pajamas, and is like while eating a raw fish. It's still scary. We watched it, and I was like, I'm still kind of unnerved by this. And I think that's the energy of this movie, is that you are meant to be uncomfortable and nervous the entire time around Oswald Cobblepot. And I kind of wish that more Batman movies would take its time in the way that it did with this one. You really understand all of the characters. As broad as their goals are, their nefarious goals, you understand them because they take the time to explain each character. Think about the Scarecrow from the Nolan movie. I don't really know why he wants to do what he wants to do. He just is being paid by someone else. He's like a
No, I do.
faceless...
I watched it. I'll tell you all about it in another podcast. I figured that shit out. It was awesome.
You figured it out? Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
it's a good.
I look forward to hearing why.
It's a 1960s. It's a 1960s Batman plot, and nobody sees that. It's cool. Batman Begins is fucking awesome.
I'm not saying it's a bad movie. I'm just saying that it's not made clear. In this movie, everything is made very clear to you. There's no mystery as to why anybody's doing what they're doing in this movie. And
it's all very subtle. Batman Begins is the most subtle Batman movie ever, and there's a lot to be talked about in that.
It sounds like we need to do a Christopher Nolan Batman month.
I think we do, but I always thought that movie kind of like it wasn't clear, like you're saying. And dude, when I watched it, I just was like, I just wanted the Scarecrow part.
I thought you were about to say, if you just pay attention, I was gonna be like, don't.
No, like, wait, what are you fucking talking about? No, if you just pay the most attention to the Scarecrow parts of the movie, it's a fucking animated series plot line about the Scarecrow. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead. Pay attention,
You threw me
Caleb.
off real hard. You threw me off real hard because now I'm like analyzing a different movie in my brain as I'm trying to tell you why I like this movie. I like this movie because it gave me a baseline for Batman. I like Batman a lot, more than I like most things, not just most superheroes, most things. And it not introduced me to Batman, but it gave me an identity for Batman. And even when I play the Batman Arkham video games today, I still, as I'm like beating people up, I still am like dun 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 dun. Oh, you guys aren't even paying attention to me. Fuck you!
I am.
I like Batman.
I'm paying
okay?
attention
That's why
to
I
you.
like this movie, because I like Batman.
Well, you have to give it your final rating.
I want to know what the
Final
other things are,
rating?
though. Like candy?
My final rating for this movie is better than 1.5 of the Nolans, better than all the Afflecks, better than all the Schumachers, best of the Burtons.
Best of the Burtons. What a five.
So I'm going to give it a 4. I'll give it a 4.
A 4? Okay. That's lower than I thought you'd give it, honestly. Kaylin, why don't you take us home, buddy? I got a final thought I want to say about it, but why don't you tell us your final?
For sure. I will connect the train of thought from Steve to you to wrap things up. And so what I'll add right quick, I like the duality of this movie, as you guys, like we talked about, where all three of them have a duality. And I liked how, so for example, like at the Masquerade Ball, where Bruce and Selina were just themselves, but like that themselves is the costume, and Batman and Catwoman are who they, see themselves as in regards to like as an actual like, person or being, I guess. But so yeah, definitely it was a movie that I grew up on. So it just automatically is already ingrained in me. A movie just as itself, as it stands alone, I think is great. It has a great style to it. Tim Burton has his style, and then teamed up with Danny Elfman, they mesh together very well to paint a picture that touches all your senses. And then it's Batman. Like, how can you not like it? Or anyway, so I digress. the numbers are slowly becoming more trivial as I go on, but I'll give it a 4 as well.
Awesome. So the thing about Batman Returns, we're all connected to it. You know, we grew up with it. We're at the perfect age now where we can look back on it fondly. It's a very important movie. I put this with Ninja Turtles 2. Ninja Turtles 2 is the worst movie. But
Ninja Turtles
Turtles
2.
1's the best.
I didn't know that when I was 7 years old. Batman Returns is one of the best made superhero movies like ever. And I don't think that's a hot take because I think that Tim Burton put so much love and care into his two Batman movies that this one really stands up on its own as being the like proto superhero movie for what superhero movies are today. I saw a lot of shades of what we see in superhero movies in the MCU. You know, the X-Men movies. I see a lot of that here as the primordial ooze, if you will,
Yeah.
of superhero movies. But at the same time,
The secret of the ooze, if you will.
like Steve said, it's literally made by the written by the writer that made Heather. So it's like it's got
So
that.
wait, one second. You guys keep saying Heather or Heathers or something. What are you talking
Heathers.
about?
It's a movie. Kaylin, watch it. It's like Mean
Oh, is that
Girls.
Christian
Yeah, what?
Slater?
Yes.
Is it good?
Yes, it's
Yeah.
very good. It's a good movie. This is my
Very
Christian
good. I'm
Slater
Christian
impression.
For me too, it's very much just this.
What are you, the
Kind of like
caviar
Robert Downey
horse?
Jr. So the thing is about Batman Returns is nobody's gonna watch it now, and that sucks. But people need to talk about this movie because
I
there's
don't
so
think
much.
that's necessarily true, Jason, because The Flash is bringing back Keaton Batman. They're going to put him in it, and I think it's maybe going to, like...
We're on like year 5 of them.
Also, we're talking about it, and we're going to influence viewers' viewings as well.
Pretty sure I didn't interrupt you guys.
I'm sure we will influence at least 6 people to go watch Batman Returns.
I know that I can be long-winded and Jerry Springer-esque when I do my final thought. But my point at the end of the day is this movie is very influential to me. I love this movie, and the 4 movies do go together, but really it is 2 and 2. Joel Schumacher.
They're separate. Yeah, they're 2 and 2.
But as a quadrilogy, it kind of goes on a sliding scale.
It's
downhill.
almost 2, 1, and 1 too.
But I feel like this movie is still good today in that Tim Burton way. Like
Yeah.
Beetlejuice, it's a great movie.
From the opening,
very timeless.
From the opening scene, it feels like a Tim Burton movie. So if you like Tim Burton movies, you're gonna like this movie.
Those doors, the weird giant doors,
and just like the comedy, like when they both drink the martini at the same time and then look at each other, or no, they look at each other first and then both drink the martini. It's like that is Tim Burton comedy. It's Edward Scissorhands. It's Beetlejuice. It's there.
Yeah. 4.7 out of 5.
Whoa, that's so close to a 5.
It's
All right, mine's 4.5.
I've never had more fun, and I'm going to get right down to the point that Penguin wants to take over the Gotham world, and I'm going to get right up in there, like I'm the fucking Batman villain, and I'm going to tell you right now that this movie is so important to me and so important to filmmaking that the 4.7 is completely justified.
Where did it lose points?
It lost points because it's like old. That's it.
Oh, what? That's not just. That's so what? It's old. Yo, look at these grays. That's just something that happens.
Yeah, well, you lost points for me as soon as you started getting those grays, Kaylin.
Exactly. You're a 4.7, Kaylin. Sorry.
Oh, damn it.
No, Jason, I think I spewed out 4 because I wasn't thinking straight. I think this movie is also like a 4.5 because I gave 4.5 to.
It's easily a 4.5. It's easily a 4.5 because I give most Marvel movies a 4.5. At this, I didn't go down; I went up. It's a 4.5, but this is better to me than
I
most
went
Marvel.
down because I was grading it on a Batman scale, where I'm like, it's
No,
not on a movie scale.
Great on a superhero scale. And I
There's a
think
lot
it goes
of
a little
different
higher.
scales.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
many.
also, I think an extra point, like the 4 point, it was a 4.6. The 4.7 is because I watched it. I don't think I've ever seen this movie with other people. The first Batman
Oh, you
I ever
guys
saw
got to hang out.
was Batman
Yes,
Forever.
and also it was good.
So,
We all had very funny insights throughout the entire movie. Yeah,
Did you
yeah,
guys
it was a
smoke
good
and drink?
experience.
we
I
had some
had
drinks.
like
Yeah.
2 beers. I had 2 or 3 beers, and that was it.
I wish I
So
lived in Toronto.
No, you
okay,
don't. It's expensive and terrible.
So this has been another episode of Hey, this one. This is a double-sized comic book edition. What's
Yeah,
next week?
this is what
Die
we
Hard.
call a centered fold.
It's a supersized
Center
team up.
fold. Yeah.
What's next week?
I think
Die Hard?
This is
I
the
think I have
splash
Ghostbusters.
page.
I'm gonna only be able to talk about 45 minutes about Die Hard. It's gonna be like the inverse. This is our Christmas.
I almost don't even want to talk about Die Hard because it's been over discussed on the internet.
Well, this isn't where we talk about this. So I'd like to thank everybody for watching. Find us on social media, mostly on this page where you're probably watching it if you're one of our 4 viewers. I would like to thank you guys for pushing me to do a 2-hour episode because I think it was necessary to talk for 2 hours about Batman specifically. And I think we're going to have many more spirited discussions about Batman in the future. But at this time, for, hey, did you see this one? Hey, see this one?
Is it our turn?
Hey, did you see this one? I can't remember. Do we do Hey, did you see this one then for Jason Kayla?
Well, we usually do that, but hey,
I
okay.
only have one
have you
question.
Kayla-
ever played a stinking city like a hawk from hell? Dun, 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 dun,
Oh! Did you guys hear that there was supposed to be there was a draft of the script where there was supposed to be a Robin and they were going to have Marlon Wayans be Robin?
Yes,
Oh my god.
I do know
actually,
of the
no,
script.
It does sound familiar. So for Kaylin and Steve,
For Jason and
And-
Kaylin, I am Batman.
Damn it, he's right! Shit! Fuck, I can't beat that. I'm only wearing black. I just gotta ask. Hey, did you see this one? For Jason and Steve, I'm Kellen. Thanks for joining us.
Where's the trigger?
What
See
if
this
someone just scarred his mouth and then they look for the person with the scarred mouth?
because it's dumb. That's where it lost its point.
Or it's smart.
Look, my mustache kind of looks like the Bat logo.
Nice.
Guys, I'm standing at a very awkward angle. I would appreciate it if you end the episode. One of my legs
Hey,
is
you guys like
jiggling.
this bat symbol better than the first one? I like it. Those weird little tail things.
Yeah, I like it. Okay, this has been the longest episode in the world. Bye.
Batman.
Batman Beyond!
Oh no, smash
Batman.